One of the best things about being from the Appalachian Mountains is our penchant for telling tall tales. The difference is we all know when someone is telling a good one. And because of this, and the lack of actual evidence to back up the claims, has left people wondering if Hill was telling the truth or not about the famous people that he had encountered over the years. We will walk through these claims today, and we will also talk about how the evidence that backed these claims up was destroyed. All aboard the Kentucky Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up the time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this fire up the time machine for our flight back in time, but it convinces the YouTube algorithm that we need a bigger vehicle to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. Napoleon Hill has claimed to have hundreds of documents showing his stories are true. Now, we can't say for sure if any of these meetings or events had actually taken place. However, we put them here because Hill claims that they were true. Now, whether or not his claims are valid, we leave that up to you, but no other documentation has ever been found. Now, we will walk through each of these claims. Andrew Carnegie. During the year of 1908, Oliver claims that he met Andrew Carnegie. Hill claims that it was a conversation that was very important to his life. According to Hill, Carnegie tasked him with interviewing the most successful and influential men in business with the goal of learning their secrets to success. These claims were made after the death of Carnegie in 1919. According to Hill, he went to New York to Carnegie's mansion by invitation. According to the source, The Untold Story of Napoleon Hill, quote, it was there that Carnegie supposedly revealed to Hill the principles of achievement, his concept of the mastermind alliance, and the ultimate secrets to financial success. After this meeting, and having received the mission to learn the influential men's secrets to success, Carnegie would introduce Hill to these men. These conversations were published in the books Think Your Way to Wealth in 1948, then in 1953 as How to Raise Your Own Salary. And finally, the book's title is Napoleon Hill's The Wisdom of Andrew Carnegie as Told to Napoleon Hill. And Napoleon Hill claimed that Carnegie gave him the great mission to continue to spread the message of success. However, it is doubtful this meeting had ever taken place, as it is not documented. Hill's biographers disagree about whether or not the meeting occurred. Hill's detractors have described these books and published conversations between Hill and Carnegie as, quote, written in the garbled style of self-help, get-rich-quick nonsense that Hill would help popularize, unquote. Hill's supporters have described the contents of the books as, quote, the meetings really did happen, just as Hill explained it, into a work that contained his own ideas about success, unquote. Whether or not the conversations did happen by Hill adding his own ideas does change the historical significance of the meeting between the two men as not being authentic. Woodrow Wilson. Sometime in 1918, after the collapse of the George Washington Institute of Advertising, Hill claimed that President Woodrow Wilson asked for help in winning World War I. Supposedly, Wilson offered a great sum of money to Hill for his help, but Hill refused it on grounds that he was a patriot. Now, I am not kidding about this one, but Hill claimed that he was so important to the war effort that he was granted powers to veto the President of the United States. This has to be a huge exaggeration, as the only people who have powers to override a veto of the President of the United States is Congress, and the United States Supreme Court has the right to override the President's decisions by using a law where it is needed to be applied in a court case. He also claims that he was instrumental and participated personally in the negotiation of the armistice with Germany. Unfortunately, there is no proof that Hill was in any way privy to the details of the peace treaty as it was being worked out. To further doubt that this has happened, the White House archives has no records of Napoleon Hill visiting or speaking to Wilson. To add to the doubt of this claim, at the time that Wilson supposedly offered a great sum of money to Hill for his help, Hill was flat broke. But that is not all. At the time, Hill was publishing his own writings at the time, and none of these contained information that he was involved in any way of the work that he would later claim. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. According to Hill's claims, he had another close relationship with the President of the United States. Napoleon Hill claimed that he was the one who came up with Franklin Delano Roosevelt's most famous saying, quote, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself," unquote. Again, there is no evidence that Hill had even met FDR, let alone come up with the famous saying. There is no evidence that Hill helped President Franklin D. Roosevelt to write his fireside chats, as he also claims. This is not to say that this is not at all plausible, but there is no evidence from FDR or the White House to prove these claims. Thomas Edison. According to Napoleon Hill, he was instrumental as an inspiration to Thomas Edison to continue his inventive work. We do know that Hill and Edison met at least once, long enough to take this photo. According to the source, The Untold Story of Napoleon Hill, the Specialty Salesman magazine, December 1923, had the following article about the meeting. Quote, Hill figured on how he could have had a picture made with Thomas A. Edison, so he could give him a medal. He sent a press agent over to announce that Mr. Hill, one of the leading magazine writers, wished to attend the Edison Convention of Dealers. Of course, he was welcome. He asked Mr. Edison to pose with him, a request he could hardly refuse. Unquote. According to the same source, as a classic behavior displayed by Hill, he displayed this photograph as far and wide as he possibly could with the following statement, quote, two of America's famous men, Thomas A. Edison left and Napoleon Hill. Mr. Edison is the inventor of the talking machine, the electric light, the moving picture, and scores of other things that serve mankind. Mr. Hill is the editor of Napoleon Hill's magazine and the New Philistine magazine and believes in making the golden rule the rule of all human conduct. Edison was born of poor parents and began his career as a news butcher on a train. Hill began as a laborer in the coal mines. Both have risen to fame through their own efforts. Unquote. It is reported by at least one source that Edison returned the medal without comment. Destruction of evidence. It was during this period that a storage fire in Chicago happened to destroy hundreds of documents, proving Hill's association with various famous figures. These men were considered the most influential movers of the turn of the century, such as Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Edward C. Barnes, Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, Elmer R. Gates, Luther Burbank, William H. Taft, Cyrus H. K. Curtis, E. M. Statler, Edward W. Bok, John D. Rockefeller, Rufus A. Ayers, John Burroughs, Harvey Samuel Firestone, Elbert H. Gary, James J. Hill, George Safer Parker, Theodore Roosevelt, Charles M. Schwab, Frank A. Vanderlip, John Wanamaker, F. W. Woolworth, Daniel Through Wright, President Woodrow Wilson, President Franklin D. Roosevelt, and William Wrigley, Jr. None of these men's estates or books have ever mentioned Hill or their endorsement of him, and no evidence can be proven that he met any of them except for briefly meeting Thomas Edison in 1923. Now, we are not saying that these things could not have happened. They could have. We are just saying that there is currently no proof, and some of these claims seem fantastic or not very plausible. Thank you. Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the outstanding Appalachian people. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification button. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries in Appalachian history.